Faced with the sudden upsurge in demonic incursions as a result of the opening of the Great Rift, the hive mind has been forced to rapidly adapt to this powerful threat. Hive Fleet Kronos is the result of this rapid adaptation. It's well suited for battling with the entities of the warp that lack the biomass to replenish the Tyranids' depleted resources as they move from planet to planet. The vicious and terrifying organisms spawned out of their giant bioships are perfectly engineered to eradicate the foul taints of the Immaterium. The raw matter of chaos is the bane of the Tyranids. Its unstable and ethereal characteristics provide little nourishment for the hive fleets to pacify their endless hunger. Because of this, the hive mind avoids areas plagued by warp storms and demonic activity where possible. As the raw essence of the Immaterium pours into real space in the wake of the Great Rift, it's becoming an increasingly difficult task. The Hive Fleet's vital resources are being denied as entire sectors of the galaxy are being consumed by chaos. The extent of this constant warp expansion has forced the tendrils of Hive Fleet Leviathan to divert from their original course, leaving behind scores of defenseless worlds and planets conquered by chaos-worshipping cultists and warp-spawned abominations. Kronos has obliterated them all. The organisms of Hive Fleet Kronos are identified by their shadowy black skin, armoured with a contrasting red, chitinous plating. These bioforms adopt an entirely different strategy to many of the other hive fleets. The rapacious hordes of Behemoth, for example, surge forwards, wearing their prey down through relentless attrition and sheer weight of numbers. The swarms of Hive Fleet Kronos demonstrate an unusual level of restraint and caution, and favour the use of ranged biomorphs to eliminate their targets from afar. Its vast invasion swarms often include mass termagant broods, directed and guided by cunning synapse creatures, armed with long-range biocannons. Hive Fleet Kronos was thought to have splintered off from Hive Fleet Leviathan as it meandered into the galactic plane during the era Indomitus. As with all Tyranid hive fleets, their advance is preceded by a looming shadow in the warp that obscures all forms of communication, leaving their imminent prey isolated, unable to call for aid. This phenomenon has been noted to be vastly more powerful on the approach of Hive Fleet Kronos than that manifested by any other hive fleet. Although Imperial researchers have observed a more restricted area of effect than the shadow cast by most hive fleets, the effects are far more powerful. The psychic connection to the hive mind is so strong that a drowning aura of null power drifts ahead of the invasion swarms. This aura causes sheer agony for psychically capable prey, as their spiritual energy is siphoned to fortify the swarm, leaving them as nothing but crumbling husks. Empiric manifestations falter and fade beneath this suffocating shroud. First-hand accounts have even cited warp rifts shrinking before the hive fleet's approach, extinguishing nearby demonic entities like candle flames. Once the swarms of Hive Fleet Kronos commit to battle, they focus on ranged warfare and commit to close assaults only where victory is guaranteed. Its warrior organisms instinctively conserve biomass, while feeder beasts concentrate on recycling all dead Tyranid matter as swiftly and efficiently as possible, allowing them to sustain combat effectiveness. Only an ill-prepared and foolish commander would expect their static defense lines to hold up against the salvos of living artillery bombardments and hails of chitinous shards launched by the horrifying Kronos bioforms. Hive Fleet Kronos has a strong symbiotic relationship with the larger hive fleets, such as Leviathan, and often follow in their wake, replenishing reserves from any remaining biomass before rejoining the ceaseless war against the hostile entities from the warp. And thus, Kronos tendrils have slowly worked their way along the fringes of the Great Rift, focusing on chaos-corrupted systems with the potential to threaten the progress of the collective hive mind. They strike out with monstrous force before withdrawing to regather their strength. It might be tempting for prey races to think of Hive Fleet Kronos as an unlikely ally in the fight against chaos. Such misbegotten hopes are soon shattered. Wherever possible, the swarms of Kronos pick off vulnerable prey worlds, consuming biomass with ravenous ferocity to fuel their ongoing fight against their true enemy. The swarms of Kronos have been known to favour prey with a strong psychic affinity, such as Eldari craftworlds, sorcerous heretic cults, or human systems in the grip of mass psychic mutation. It's unclear whether this is simply to absorb more psychic biomass or to eliminate potential conduits for demonic incursion, but with the energies of the Great Rift spreading and tainting entire planets, the swarms of Hive Fleet Kronos are growing ever stronger. In more recent times, the demons of chaos have come to experience the relentless fury of Kronos on the crumbling world of Shadowbrink. Shadowbrink was a cathedral world of high importance to the Imperium, as it concealed an ancient and terrible secret from the dark age of technology, a device known as the Maelstrom Cradle. This strange artifact emitted an empiric energy signature and was thought to be a type of warp gate. Despite the best efforts of the Inquisition, the cradle couldn't be destroyed, so a permanent garrison of Grey Knights had been assigned to watch over it, performing daily rituals of warding, while their librarians worked to permanently seal this potential demonic rift. However, with the onset of Hive Fleet Leviathan, the Grey Knights had run out of time. The overwhelming Tyranid assault caused the runes of the Maelstrom Cradle to activate, opening up a warp rift that spilled out hordes of demonic entities onto the planet's surface. The Imperial defenders were completely outmatched and were massacred in the twisting battle that took place. The relentless swarms of the Great Devourer emerged victorious, consuming everything in their path and banishing the invading demons back into the warp. In the following millennia, after Leviathan had passed, the demonic presence at Shadowbrink erupted with chaos energy as the Great Rift spread its influence and allowed the demons to once again inhabit its surface. Drawn by Shadowbrink's malevolent aura, Hive Fleet Kronos arrived in orbit to deal with this re-emerging threat. The hive mind began its assault by depositing spore clusters that spewed forth swarms of organisms at 8 strategic locations across the planet's surface, areas of growing warp activity that drew the creatures of Kronos in. Each of the invasion sites was directed by powerful synapse creatures, a neural node of maleceptors and zoanthropes that could sense the empiric signatures of the chaos entities and concentrated the attacks of the swarms accordingly. The intensity of the shadow in the warp around these psychic organisms was so strong that smaller warp rifts around the Maelstrom Cradle began to close. Legions of demonic monstrosities stormed forwards towards the Xenos in a blood-crazed frenzy, but the Tyranids of Hive Fleet Kronos refused to answer the charge. Instead, the demons were met with withering hails of fleshborer fire and blasted apart by artillery beasts with devastating volleys of bioplasma. Slowly, but inevitably, the warp-spawned horrors on Shadowbrink were banished back into the warp. Hive Fleet Kronos had cleansed the demon-infested world, and in doing so, strengthened the hive mind's unstoppable advance.